Welcome to Good Intentions and Bad Outcomes. It's a podcast about challenges and practices you might encounter in the workplace, where good intentions have unintended and often unnoticed consequences. I'm Gino Marckx,
And I'm Wayne Hetherington.
and every time we share a situation that we or our listeners have seen in the workplace and that is challenging in some way. So we discuss the what and the why, and let's try to come up with some alternatives on the spot. So today's challenge that we want to discuss is related to OKRs, and we have seen this a couple of times where key results are actually performance targets that we've using performance targets. So Wayne, have you seen this in the past, and how would you explain this?
Yeah, I've seen this lots of times. In fact, I think it's probably one of the sort of the default ways of approaching objectives and key results. And where I've seen it happen is managers or program areas, they try to put some measurements against their objectives. So they're setting key results that end up being targets for their people to meet. I, I don't necessarily think that the intent is bad. They've got good intentions as they're setting this, but often it can not turn out the way they want it.
Yeah.
What kinds of things do you think are they hoping to get by setting targets for their key results?
Well, oftentimes objectives or outcomes and key results are not necessarily things that are clear for the people in the teams to follow, and they don't necessarily always know what to do or how to achieve those things. So my assumption is that people set performance targets to motivate their teams, to chase those objectives and to meet those key results that now are performance targets, which we assume will lead to those outcomes or have an impact on those outcomes. I think that's the main driver behind this kind of behavior. Another one might be just out of habit. It's something that they understand, is something that people have been using for a long time, and coming to the realization of how OKRs work and how key results are not supposed to be targets might be something that is not easy to immediately understand for everyone. And as a result, they fall back to what they already know. Do you see anything else, Wayne?
Well, I see managers setting these key results. I don't think that they, like you said, intend to have a bad result out of it. I think they really want to motivate their teams. They want to give them something to shoot for. They want to align everybody heading in the same direction, which are, some of the main ideas in OKRs. So they're not necessarily approaching it incorrectly or with a bad intention, but sometimes it can turn out that way.
Yeah. So what is kind of the bad outcome there? What are the potential downfalls of doing this?
So I think one of the main things that I've seen in the past is that a manager will set a key result as a target and then give that target to the team and tell them this is the target you're shooting for. And often it's fairly unreasonable for them to meet. And so now the team feels a lot of pressure. They feel like they have to meet this unrealistic target, and they work super hard and maybe even experience some failure as they miss that target.
Right. And on top of that, they have been given that target, right? It's not something that they immediately have impact on. It's very hard for them to say no to it. It's a target that they got to meet and so forth. One of the things that I see as well as a potential bad outcome is the fact that their actions actually get disconnected from the outcome that they want to achieve, that those targets are intended to achieve as well. Because those targets or those key results now have become targets that need to be met, that is more important than the outcome that they are trying to show progress towards. And if the team, of course, no longer thinks about the outcomes themselves, but more about, hey, I need to achieve those targets. I need to achieve those targets. They might miss out on opportunities to meet those outcomes or get to them in a cheaper way, in a more effective way, using different actions, not necessarily hitting those targets, but definitely meeting the outcomes, right? So you're kind of missing the ball, if you will, if you're doing it that way.
Well, it changes the focus of the team. They're more focused on the number than they are on the actual objective,
That's right.
right?
That's
And
right.
then I'm thinking too that when we're setting targets for our key results, it produces more of the same type of outcome that we've had before. Whereas objectives and key results were meant to be stretch goals, moonshots, things that we weren't actually supposed to be able to achieve, just get as close as we can to. But now if we put a target on that, the driver is to meet the target rather than see if we can get to the objective or close to the objective.
Right. And also not to exceed it, right? Because that's
Mhm.
that's not a motivation anymore. It's more meeting the target out of fear than out of intrinsic motivation of wanting to do really well and hitting that outcome. Um, Go ahead.
I've got just one opposite kind of effect that could come
Mhm.
out of it too, and sometimes I've seen this is where the key result, because it's treated almost like a KPI or a standard mode of operation, business as usual. If we meet this target, then we're doing okay. Then we fail to motivate the team to actually stretch and grow. It almost promotes mediocrity on the team. If we just keep doing what we're doing, we'll meet the target, no problem. And that's demotivational in itself.
Right. So exactly the opposite of what you wanted to achieve in the first place.
Right.
Okay, so what are some alternatives, some things that our listeners could do to not fall into this trap and still motivate the teams?
Right. Well, I think one of the things you could start by doing is understanding the purpose of OKRs. The objectives were supposed to be stretch goals. The measurements for them were supposed to be just beyond our reach, almost unattainable, close, but not quite tangible. You're reaching for it, but you can't quite get there. And when we set the goals like that, we expect the team to miss it. Not miss it by a lot, but miss it, by a little. If we're not setting it far enough that they got to stretch, then it's not far enough. So we have to let the team know that it's okay to miss the target. This really isn't a target, it's more directional than a destination.
Yeah. And one of the things that I would advise there is to go first as leaders as well and actually demonstrate that targets or key results in this case should be interpreted that way. That me as a leader, I will make sure that my OKRs are public, that they can be seen by everyone on my team, that they are updated regularly as well. And I'll show that those key results are stretch results, stretch targets, if you will, and I will not likely meet them. And you know what? Some of them might I might realize throughout the course of the quarter or the year that they are not really giving me a good indication towards my objective, and I might change them altogether, right? Because there's other indicators that give me more information and that help me meet my objective a lot better. So going first as leaders, I think, creates an environment in which it's easier to really understand and also to believe that yes, these things are not targets, but they are things that help give us direction.
And just to build on what you're saying there a little bit more, you could take that one step further. So a leader could create an objective with some key results for themselves, and then invite the team to do the same, which is a little bit different from the way I've seen it normally work. Usually a
Yeah.
leader uh, sets a key result and hands that to the team as though that's what they have to work for, which takes their autonomy away. They feel less motivated, less bought in when somebody is giving them something that they have to reach. So after a leader has set their own objectives and some key results for them, perhaps invite the team to negotiate what the objective and the key results too. Like, ask the team, how much do you think you can do? What's reasonable? And maybe if you want to stretch them a little bit, if you want to give them something to work for, then just crank it up a bit. Say, could you do 20% more? And challenge them just a little bit like that. But you let them set the goal and then stretch them just a little bit. And then that way they have the autonomy and they feel more bought into the results that they're producing.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to end this episode of Good Intentions, Bad Outcomes. So thanks, Wayne, and that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. And if you have a situation at work in the past or right now that you would like us to discuss, then by all means let us know. We'll give you the information underneath this recording. Thank you again, and see you next time.
Thanks. Bye-bye.